Hansel and Gretel. The family's hard times. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a father, a stepmother, and two children named Hansel and Gretel. The father was a woodcutter who worked hard to provide for his family. But times were tough. There was not much food to eat because of a great famine that had hit the land. The stepmother, who was not very kind, thought of a plan to get rid of Hansel and Gretel so she could have all the food for herself. The stepmother's plan. "Father," said the stepmother one day, "we must take Hansel and Gretel deep into the forest and leave them there. That way, we will have enough food for ourselves." The father did not want to do this but felt he had no choice because his wife kept insisting. Preparing for the journey. That night, Hansel overheard his stepmother talking to his father about her plan. He knew they had to do something to protect themselves. The next morning, before they left for the forest, Hansel filled his pockets with breadcrumbs so they could find their way back home. The journey to the forest. The family set off early in the morning. As they walked through the forest, Hansel dropped breadcrumbs along the path so they could follow them back home. But when they reached deep into the forest, something unexpected happened. Birds ate all the breadcrumbs that Hansel had dropped. Lost in the forest. After Hansel and Gretel realized they were lost, they felt scared and alone. The forest was dark and full of strange noises. "Don't worry, Gretel," said Hansel. "We will find a way home." But as night began to fall, they found a clearing and decided to rest there until morning. The witch's house. The next day, while walking through the dense woods again, they stumbled upon a strange-looking house made entirely out of gingerbread and candy. The windows were made of sugar glass, and the roof was covered with icing. Gretel's eyes widened with excitement. "Look, Hansel, a house made of candy." Hansel's stomach growled at the sight of all that food. "Let's go inside and see if we can find something to eat." Meeting the witch. As they approached the house, an old woman came out. She had a kind face but a sly smile. "Welcome, dear children," said the old woman. "Come in and rest a while. You must be very hungry." Hansel and Gretel entered the house and saw all sorts of delicious treats, cakes, cookies, and chocolates. "Eat as much as you like," said the old woman. "But first, let me make you some soup." The witch's plan. What Hansel and Gretel did not know was that this old woman was actually a wicked witch who lived in the forest. She had built her house out of candy to lure children into her trap. The witch had a plan to eat Hansel and Gretel for her dinner. She locked Hansel in a cage outside so he could fatten up before she cooked him. Gretel was forced to work as a servant in the house, doing chores and cooking meals for the witch. Gretel's cleverness. Days passed, and Hansel grew bigger and stronger in his cage. The witch would often check on him and say, "Soon you will be ready for my oven." Gretel heard this every day and knew she had to think of a plan to save her brother. One day, while the witch was busy preparing dinner, Gretel asked her how she should test if the oven was hot enough. The witch, thinking it was a good idea, said, "You should stick your head inside to see if it's hot." Gretel pretended to do so, but instead pushed the witch into the oven and locked it shut. Escaping the witch. With the witch trapped in her own oven, Gretel ran outside to free Hansel from his cage. "Hansel, we have to go home now," exclaimed Gretel. They took some of the witch's jewels and gold before leaving her house behind forever. finding their way home. Using their wits and courage, they navigated through the forest until they found their way back home. When they arrived at their father's house, they found that their stepmother had died during their absence due to her own cruel ways. Their father was overjoyed to see his children again and promised never to let them go away from him again. The happy ending. Hansel and Gretel lived happily ever after with their father. They used some of the witch's gold to buy food and other necessities so they never had to suffer hunger again.